Hello, my name is Stephen Shedd, and for my second virtual presentation, I'll be taking a look at Japan and the Japanese culture. I will give you some important information about their culture, what Japan is known for, modes of entertainment, food, values and beliefs, education, communication, and the craft of origami. Japanese culture today is the accumulation of several Japanese eras. Japanese culture remains heavily influenced by the two main religions of Japan, which are Shintoism and Buddhism. Many of the Japanese traditions and holidays, morals, values, and beliefs are because of these religions. For centuries, Japan was known to be an isolationist, but after Japan's Edo period, they started taking inspiration in cultural practices from all over the world. Today, Japan takes inspiration from several cultures, including the Western culture. In the past, the most commonly worn clothes by Japanese men and women was the kimono. Nowadays, the kimono is only used for specific Japanese traditions and rituals. Japanese men and women wear all sorts of clothes now, but both men and women decide to generally wear modest clothes with little to no skin showing. There are several holidays and traditions celebrated in Japan. Some of the most common are Shogatsu, New Year's, Hanami, the Cherry Blossom Festival, and Obon, the celebration of ancestors' spirits. There are approximately 126.8 million people living in Japan. Around 97.8% of the population of Japan is Japanese. The other 2.2% of people living in Japan is made up of a small percentage of a lot of different nationalities. The products and exports that Japan is most known for is their cars and tech. In 2018, Japan produced around 9.5 million vehicles, which accounts for 10% of all vehicles. Three tourist attractions and some of the most well-known landmarks in Japan are Mount Fuji, the Imperial Palace, and the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park. Japan's economy is very successful. Their GDP is the third highest in the world, behind the United States and China. Japan's GDP was approximately 5.36 trillion in 2019. Japanese literature is known for its novels, plays, and poetic diaries. Japan's most famous writer is a man called Haruki Murakami, who has been a bestseller in Japan and internationally. Some of the most played and watched sports in Japan include baseball, soccer, golf, tennis, and its national sport, sumo wrestling. Japan is also famous for its karate, kendo, and judo. Some of the most popular leisure activities in Japan include dining out, traveling, karaoke, and watching television. Japanese children in their free time enjoy reading books, manga, known as comic books, watching TV, playing video games, playing instruments, and doing arts and crafts. Two types of food that Japan is most known for is their sushi and ramen noodles. Shintoism and Buddhism are the two main religions in Japan. According to JapanGuide.com, Shinto is an optimistic faith, as humans are thought to be fundamentally good and evil is believed to be caused by evil spirits. Consequently, the purpose of most Shinto rituals is to keep away evil spirits by purification, prayers, and offerings to the kami. Buddhists believe that enlightenment is achieved through the practice and development of morality, meditation, and wisdom. Both religions of Japan are said to live harmoniously together in Japan with little to no conflict. Japan's views about aging correlates with their religious beliefs. Aging is viewed as a sign of maturity and wisdom. Japanese art often portrays elders as a wise sage. Japan is extremely similar to how gender is viewed in America. One major similarity is the gender pay gap. Women in Japan aren't paid as much as men. Traditional Japanese families are usually patriarchally led, with the father going to work and the mother staying home and taking care of their kids and the domestic duties. Education is something that is valued highly in Japanese culture. The Japanese education system is second in the world behind Finland. Japanese education systems focus on intellectual growth, moral education, character development, and vocational skills. The primary language spoken in Japan is Japanese. In Japan, upon meeting someone for the first time, they'll usually bow as a sign of respect. When handing someone something, you should hand it to them with 2 hands instead of 1, because 1 is seen as disrespectful. In Japan, the proper position to sit on the ground is known as seiza. Japan has several food etiquettes, but some of the most important revolve around chopsticks. Chopsticks should not be rubbed against each other because it insinuates that the chopsticks are cheap. Passing food chopstick to chopstick is also not supposed to happen because it is seen as a ritual where they pass bones of relatives. Sticking chopsticks in rice standing up is also disrespectful because it is a ritual that is used at funerals. When referring to someone, the most used honorific is san because it can be used for Mr. or Miss. Sama is used for people who are higher ranking or someone you admire. Origami is an art that has been in Japanese culture for centuries. It is said to have been introduced to foster the creativity of young Japanese kids. Origami is an elegant form of art that can be practiced during one's leisure time. I learned to create this origami crane, which is one of the most iconic Japanese origami figures, by following a step-by-step tutorial. Learning to do origami can be fairly difficult, and it takes some time to master and perfect the art. The hardest thing that I found about doing origami was making sure that all my folds were as precise as possible, otherwise my result would not look like the intended figure. I learned a lot about the Japanese culture that I would never have known if it were not for this project in class. Japan's cultural norms are more formal than the cultural norms that I learned as a kid. Japan seems to be more modest, have a higher standard of etiquette, and is much more polite in general. We can learn more about the Japanese culture by visiting Japan and witnessing the culture firsthand. If you're unable to visit Japan, you can learn more about their culture through books, documentaries, food, friends, and attending local Japanese events in your area. As teachers, it is extremely important to learn about other cultures because sometimes we have to connect a student's cultural background to the teaching material to help them become more engaged and help them with their individual learning needs. Teaching students about other cultures will help prepare students for a culturally diverse world.